According to recent student surveys, vapes are still very popular amongst youth. However, now it's what they put in them that is causing even more concern.
We have seen an increase in marijuana usage within the vapes, using THC oil in a vape as opposed to just the normal nicotine oil.
Even though the age to use vapes was raised to 21 in Utah, underage youth are still able to get their hands on these devices and products.
Our cannabis use rates among adolescents in the state of Utah, and particularly here in southwest Utah, continue to increase. Every single year we see a sharp increase in the number of kids who are using this substance. And now we're seeing a sharp increase in the number of them who are using them through a vaporizer.
Members of the Washington County Youth Coalition know firsthand what many of their peers are doing and want to warn them on the harm it can cause.
I've heard quite a few kids at my school just talk about the use of it and how they just use it all the time so nonchalantly, like it's no big deal. And I think it's important to tell others the potential risk of using these vapes.
Youth like to hear from their peers, so it's important that we educate youth through our Washington County Youth Coalition about the harms and risks associated with marijuana and tobacco use.
Many of the vapes, like the Juuls, are so easy to hide. Students have been seen using them inside the classrooms.
It's very easy to hide your vape because it's about the size of your hand, and so people can easily just discreetly put it up to their mouth, and then they can blow the smoke into their backpack, or they can blow it out into their shirt. And now with masks it's a lot easier to hide it, or if they're in the back of the classroom, teachers don't even see it.
School resource officers already keep a watchful eye outside and inside of schools, and if students are caught with these products, they will face the consequences. Sergeant Carson said police test every single vape when they catch them with it.
Yeah, so we'll test the substance, and we have the ability to do that in a matter of seconds. And then from there it'll be a charge of possession of marijuana that falls within the law.
But what many may not realize is after 4 convictions, the charges can turn into a third-degree felony here in the state of Utah.
Under the age of 18, they receive a juvenile referral to juvenile court, and then it'll be handled through the juvenile court. If they're 18 and above, they'll receive a citation for possession of marijuana, and then they'll have to go through the court system through that. For 4, it would be a third-degree felony, which is, I believe, whatever the fine is according to that, and anywhere from 6 months to a year possibly in jail.
An even bigger concern is the harm to the user's health. Reed said while marijuana in the 70s only contained about 3% THC, today's marijuana is about 20%.
So that's where I get really concerned as a prevention specialist, is that we're talking about a plant that already has a major increase in THC levels. And then you're taking that and concentrating it into a liquid that you can ingest through an aerosol into your lungs, which means you're getting even more of that concentrated substance into your system and then going all throughout your system, particularly concerning as it goes into the brain.
Research also shows the younger they start, the more likely youth are to develop addiction or long-term problems.
The earlier kids start using, the more likely they are to develop a dependence or an addiction, a disorder. The more they use, the more frequently they use, the longer that they use, all of those things increase their risk of developing a substance use disorder. But now what this research is showing is that also the mode that they use to ingest it has an impact. So if they're taking it through a vaporizer as opposed to a cigarette or a blunt, they are more likely to have long-term use and dependence from using it with an electronic vaporizer.
Because the vape flavors are likely targeted to youth, all agree that education is the key to letting students know the dangers and consequences linked to vaping, even if they refer to it as medicinal.
Well, youth hear the word medicinal or medical and they think it's safe. They don't realize that tobacco and cannabis use is incredibly detrimental to a developing brain. We at the Southwest Public Health Department are working closely with our Youth Coalition to update our free e-cigarette course, Clearing the Vapor, to include the harms and risks of cannabis use.
You know, I think it's important to understand that use of any kind of cannabis comes with risk. You know, THC, which is that most psychoactive chemical in cannabis, that's what gets you high. It's what negatively impacts learning and memory and impulse control. It's what negatively impacts cognition, or the way that your brain functions. It impacts motor activity. It impacts the reward system, which is what causes addiction. So those risks exist with any use of cannabis.
Reed says flavors used in these vapes also haven't been proven safe to the lungs. A recent school survey from 6,500 students in Washington County shows about 15% of seniors are regular users of vapes, while use among 10th graders was also high in 2019. However, 6th graders are now among those experimenting with vapes.
So as young as 6th grade, we're seeing what was only about 1 or 2% of kids who had used a vaporizer is now up to 3-4%, depending on which area you're looking at. So still, we're talking fairly small numbers, but the fact that it's doubled in recent years among that young age group is very concerning.
Even if it isn't sold to them at local outlets, students say it's easy to find the marijuana in an oil form, especially with the internet. Youth agree that social media is a tool to find it and to see how to use it.
So I think teens are using social media to sell it, to teach people how to hide it, and it makes kids and teens curious about what it is, what's in it, and they want to try it and use it, and then once they try it once, they get addicted.
Reed believes lawmakers, local leaders, and parents need to keep a closer eye on access to these products to keep youth from being users in the future. In Washington County, Melissa Anderson, Community Education News.